Hey, Deanna, this is Andrew. Just finished up your analysis, working late tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and walk you through all the numbers. That way you'll understand where I'm coming from and kind of the due diligence that we do going into this. So hope this helps you out, guys out a lot. Let's just start with the listing from when you guys bought the house. You can see it was listed at 149. You got it as a foreclosure, and there's the square footage. And this is what I was talking about. We're just going to reference the tax record. Here's the tax record. You bought it for 144. Again, the square footage here on the tax record. And I can't emphasize enough how smart you guys are. You did really good in a time when everybody was terrified, and you pulled the trigger. So you did really good, guys. And I'm so glad to be working with somebody who actually made money for the first time in probably 2 months. Everybody we're working with right now is just squeaking out of their houses. So I'm going to take you to the basically this is what I call the reality or the comparative market analysis. This is where we look at all the old houses that have sold, and this shouldn't be a surprise to you. I talked about some of this at the listing. I mean at the preview the other day. So here's what we got. We got one comparative house that sold for 115 a square foot, 101 a square foot. We're going to throw that one out because it just seems like an outlier to me. It doesn't represent anything else we have here. 116 a square foot, 121 a square foot, 120 a square foot, 118 a square foot, and 121 a square foot. The big key, and this doesn't always make sense. Sometimes a house just sells when the inventory is low, and I can never put my finger on why it sold for a lot more, a lot less. But this one was pretty clear. Basically, the larger yards and the upgraded finishes, it tends to be what is the difference between that 116 and the 121 number. So I'm showing you an example here of one of the ones that sold for 121. So they got some pretty sharp floors. I think they call that a distressed V-groove floor or a hand scraped floor with the V-groove. So hardwoods all throughout the downstairs, including the master bedroom. Piano in the master bedroom because you're in Nashville, and so looks pretty sharp as you can see, and that's what 121 a square foot looks like. It's not to say that you couldn't get 121 a square foot, but in the past, without the hardwoods, you haven't been able to. So that's reality. Now what we're going to do is we want to talk about the current market. Now, when you see this, you should just get really excited, but you might not know what you're looking at right now. So what this means is that one has a contract with financing. This one has a contract with an inspection contingency. They're not through that period yet. This one has a contract waiting on financing, inspection, and then financing again. So what that means is if you drove by 5 houses in Abington Park that look like they're for sale, or you're on Realtor.com, or even if you're on my website, it looks like there's 5 houses. In reality, there's 0. So who do you think is going to be the next house on the market if you were on the MLS? It would be you guys. And people would be forced, with inventory low, supply and demand says that when the supply is low and the demand is high, values go up. So that's why I get real bullish on this next part. Now let's start again. This is the same information we just talked about, but we're going to go through it more clearly. Reality says your house is worth 116, and it's really actually 115, but to 121 a square foot. And I would rather spend the whole night talking about reality before I talk about the fantasy land, because I need you to be grounded in that, and I need you to know that when these offers are coming in at 116 a square foot, that they're not crazy. So that means your 170 offer was not as far off as I know you may have thought it was. That being said, I agree that it's early on and inventory's low, so let's hold out. I'd have one in Franklin come back to us after a month, and we sold it for what we originally asked. So that means your house is worth 180 to $190,000. I can't remember what your first offer was. It was 170 or 180. I can't remember. But anyway, so that's where you should be selling. Now, in fantasy land, inventory is really sparse, and we should be able to exceed comparable sales. That doesn't mean you can exceed the 121 a square foot, because that wouldn't, in this case, wouldn't be comparable. But you should be able to exceed the 116 a square foot, meaning can you stretch it up to 121 a square foot? My guess is that it's likely. It's at least a really good chance this week. We don't know what comes on the market next week. So that means that the price that you would want to go to market with would be 190, or in this case 189. You want to hit those search parameters, you always drop it a grand. I could even call it 189.9. Doesn't matter to me. The point is, you need to be under the people who are searching that they've been qualified for 190. So, and then finally, just something to think about as for sale by owners is that as for sale by owner, you're only saving 3%. Now, you can save 6%. The problem with saving 6% is that one realtor who brings all the contracts and all the paperwork, he's actually doing double the work and is really working for you guys too, even though he doesn't represent you. And that keeps you out of trouble, basically. It keeps you out of disclosure problems, contract problems, and make sure you're going by the law. So that's kind of a blessing in a way. You should gladly pay 3% to a buyer's agent just to help keep you guys on track and under the contract dates. Secondly, keep in mind a good negotiator could save you 3%. The example I like to use is if I was going to go buy a car tomorrow, there's a really good chance that there's somebody out there who knows how to negotiate cars in such a way that he's going to get himself paid for it. If I had to give him 3%, I'd do it tomorrow. Number 3 is that a costly mistake can cost you 3%. I had this happen about a year ago. The guy called me after he had already gotten out of his inspection period. He was in day 13. Had he called me 3 days later, we could have thrown the brakes on it, but it ended up costing him a lot of money, a lot more than a commission would have been, because he didn't understand the timing of the inspection, and that even though he thought they were still negotiating, it was over, and it cost him a lot of money. So 3% of nothing is approximately nothing. I wouldn't worry about that one because everything's selling right now. You may have to drop the price, but in softer markets, I've said this a lot, it doesn't save you 3% if you can't sell. In a good market, half the houses don't sell when they're first listed. In the market we came out of, it was only 1 in 3 would sell when they were first listed. Right now, it's, I mean, honestly, I haven't not sold anything I listed in about 2 years, but that's partly just being in the business a while. I'm not going to take a listing that is not, I'm not working with a rational, reasonable person. So yes, I'm selling 100% of everything. If I'm after your business, I'm going to sell your house. If I'm not after your business, then that's fine. It's not a situation that's going to be beneficial for either one of us. And then finally, is your time and safety worth 3%? Now, 3% of your time, just depends on what you're doing. 3% of your safety, you just need to be really careful. I've got a few tips I give to folks. One is when you talk to them on the phone, always ask for them to bring an ID. Now, I do this with rentals. I check their ID on the front porch. I don't take a photo of it, but I encourage homeowners to do that. And the reason why is because you got stuff in that house. My rentals are vacant. So the truth is I've never had a problem. But what you do is you tell them you're going to need their ID before they show up. And that will intimidate anybody who's up to no good. So even if their scam is a long-term scam and not, I'm going to hurt you or anything like that, they don't want their ID flashed. They don't want to be found out. They want to be anonymous. So that solves that problem pretty quickly. And then the other thing is if you feel uncomfortable, stand on the front porch the whole time, or call somebody who knows that that you have someone at the house. This is what Julie, my buyer's agent, and my assistant both do, is they get somebody on the phone before the stranger shows up. And so at the end of the day, I cannot guarantee I can make you 3% more. These are just things to consider. What I can guarantee is that you're best at doing what you do best. I'll do things that I'm not good at, and I'm best at doing what I do best. So if it's worth 3% to take that burden off you, I'd be glad to do that. So that being said, I'm also glad to help you. I don't want you to feel pressure, and I don't want you to feel like you couldn't have done it on your own, because I know you can. I know you can do it with the help that I'll provide. But one reason that people turn to me after they first sold by owner for a little while is they learn that it's tough work. And so if I can do anything for you guys, I am always here for you. And Deanna, I just wanted to thank you so much for the plug on Facebook the other day. That means the world to me. I have a wife and kids, and I'm not a big business, and it changes my world when you do that. So thank you so much. Y'all have a wonderful evening. Thanks.